today we believe we're one of the global leaders in this, and part of the reason is because the access to the level of information that we receive from the companies. You hear a lot of noise by the TV talking heads about a possible technology bubble similar to what happened in 99, 2000. At GSV, we believe that the world's leading companies will garner the right valuations and the right investment opportunities for us at the right valuations, excuse me, regardless of what's happening in the macro environment. And if we're continuing to bet on what we believe to be the world's leaders in a particular vertical, they tend to be resilient when it comes to market volatility. If you look back in history at the companies that survived the dot-coms, what you don't hear about often is that's where Google was born, that's where Genentech was born, that's where Apple came from, and Microsoft, their resurgence. And so there's a lot of noise in the marketplace today. We believe that there's still plenty of room for these companies to grow, and that's why we make few bets. So our funds are very concentrated funds. We don't just take our capital and invest in hundreds of names like traditional Silicon Valley firms do. We take very focused bets on companies and investment opportunities, and then we grow our investment over time in those businesses based upon their performance. And so when we come to groups like you, it's after we have invested for a few years in these businesses, and when we make the opportunities available to our friends and family or high net worth investors. The companies have had substantial growth, they've met their forecast, and we believe the exit opportunity is a risk-adjusted return for you that is something that you wouldn't necessarily get by investing in the general stock market. And David's fund that he'll manage provides that in even a more risk-adjusted way. So our equity funds are short-term. So our IRRs are very large. They're in the 60% range. But the capital is only tied up for a very short amount of time. So then it's either return to the investor or you're able to recycle it into the next opportunity at the investor's choice. We also offer, when the companies exit, we distribute stock to our investors, not cash. So if you have a particular name that for instance, we believe Pinterest will be very successful. If you invest in that and it goes public, we transfer the stock to you. And if you believe that it's a long-term, much greater return for you to hold it, you're able to do that. If you want to sell the shares, you sell the shares. Versus a lot of funds will sell and distribute cash. So anyway, any other questions for us? Yes?
I have two questions. How long has GSB been in business? And how liquid is the money that's invested with you? How soon after the investment can one retire?
Yeah, I can repeat his questions. His first question was, how long has GSV been in existence? GSV dates back to our private side of GSV. We're investing in companies with private funds to 2006. Our public fund was launched in 2011, and the fund that David is spearheading will also become a public fund traded on NASDAQ. So today at GSV we have approximately $750 million US under management. That's comprised of a public fund that trades on NASDAQ that's got a much wider approach. It invests in companies that we say from A to Apple, so from Series A all the way to massive businesses like Apple. And you can follow that ticker on NASDAQ. It's GSVC. It has daily liquidity, so if you want to buy 1,000 shares of GSV, you can go to your E-Trade account and purchase it. And that fund is approximately 300 million or so. And then we have private funds that the typical period in which the funds are tied up are somewhere between 18 and 24 months. So that's why the IRRs, as I mentioned before, are very large. You know, they're outsized IRRs. They're north of 50%. But in order to get the multiple that you might be wanting at a venture, you would need to be willing to continue to reinvest the principal into the next fund. Otherwise, it would be a great investment. You would invest one time, let's say $100,000, and you would get $200,000 back or $150,000 back. That's great. But if you don't continue to invest that original $100,000 into the next fund, you can't create the multiple of investment that you're looking for in venture, the 5x, the 7x, the 10x that was talked about earlier. So I think I answered both of your questions. Other questions? Yeah?
Hi, you just, if I listened correctly, you spoke about companies in the U.S. only, right? But have you invested in companies in Mexico or Latin America?
So we're agnostic when it comes to where the companies are located. They need to be the global leader. So if you look at our portfolio, for instance, we were investors in Alibaba, it's a Chinese company. One of our largest investments today is Spotify, and it's a Swedish company, and I think we all love that business, right? It's phenomenal.
I have a question about Spotify, actually.
Sure.
Because when you go to another country, like, you face challenges like licensing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've recently heard about Spotify being, for people who use Spotify to be charged for licensing or something like that. So now there are like competitors that bring you the licensing included in the price. So
Yes, so the online music streaming industry is still in its infancy. So if we remember back when the first company of that was formed was a company called Napster, right? Everybody's shaking their head. Everybody loved Napster. Well, from that day forward, the streaming revenue of the recorded music industry continues to grow at approximately 80% annually. So it's like extraordinary growth. And there's a number of companies that are launching and trying to create this locally and then globally. And at the same time, you're seeing the recorded CD sales go the other direction. And so what it's done is it's created some friction in the recorded music industry around royalties. So artists today are finding that they can launch their own brand on these services and bypass the record labels. And for the artist, it's incredible. It provides them, if you go to a company like Spotify and you have enough people, searching for your music. So let's say there's a local band in Mexico City, and they're getting to a following, and people that have Spotify continue to search for their music. Spotify goes and gets that group on the platform and provides them a way to distribute their music globally. So your question about the royalties, it's really today a struggle between the artist and the record label. And companies like Spotify, and now Apple Music's trying to do this, they're having a contract directly with the record label for a flat fee. So it's not passed on to the consumer. But what happens is there's only one company in the world today that provides a free service of on-demand music streaming, and that's Spotify. So you can get a free service of the music you specifically want to listen to, unlike Pandora, which is the next generation of radio, right? So, which is it's a company that will exist. It's got 80 million users. It's not going to go away. There's an entire generation of the population that's how they want to listen to their music. They don't want to specify particular artists, particular songs. They want to say, I like reggaeton music, and I just want to play that in the background, and I'm okay with ads. I'm used to the normal radio. The power of companies like Spotify is it's bringing unlimited, on-demand music to your. In the beginning, it was just to your computer. Then it went to your smartphone. Now, for instance, I'm an avid Spotify user. In my household, I have a number of children and my wife. We each have our own premium account because I don't want my 9-year-old daughter listening to the music of my 13-year-old son. So we each compartmentalize our streaming lists. And then that's continual revenue to Spotify at $10 a month. So today, one of the reasons why we've made Spotify our largest bet in our portfolio by far is there's not another company in the world that's growing at the pace it's growing and has a stronghold on one particular market. So today, about 85% of the online streaming revenue flows through Spotify. So everybody talks about Apple Music. Apple Music is great. It's based upon trying to convert iTunes users, who we all have been before, into streaming users on your smartphone. A couple stats for you. There's 800 million iTunes accounts. That's a lot of iTunes accounts, right? It's a lot. They've been able to convert less than 1% of them to their paid service. So they have this built-in massive, massive audience. The problem is it's not universal. So only a fraction of the world's population has an iPhone for a lot of reasons. Macroeconomic reasons mostly, right? And the emerging markets have more smart devices going into them on an annualized basis than all that exist in the U.S. So the rest of the world is, the U.S. is fairly penetrated with these. The rest of the world is not, and it's continuing to evolve, and it's skipped a generation. So when I mean by skipping a generation, there's an entire generation that never used a laptop computer, right? So they went right from a desktop to a smartphone and a tablet. And then there's an entire generation that never used a computer, they just use a smartphone. And that's continuing to increase. So as the users increase globally on the platform, the on-demand services, regardless if it's Spotify or Uber or Airbnb, Snapchat, all of these companies, they're really just in the beginning. And there's kind of two, so I'm going on and on here, but there's two types of high growth companies that exist today, and they're all labeled as unicorns. You hear this term, the unicorns. Well, now there's this new term called the donkey, right? So there's the donkey unicorn, and then there's the unicorn. And what's happening is you're seeing this separation of the two types of companies. Ones that have no ability to turn their product into sustainable revenue, and another that is completely the opposite, which every day they increase their user base, increase their revenue number, increase what we refer to as quality of revenue, like a Netflix, like a Spotify. Now, Pinterest. The most frightening thing is a husband and a father of 4 girls is the ability now on demand for them to buy something on Pinterest. It's frightening, the stress that it can put on your American Express card. But it's immediate, it's instant. Whereas before, you might have liked to follow on Pinterest, you want to follow your brother or sister or your spouse and see what they're looking at. Now your wife can follow her sister, and when her sister puts a handbag on there, there's an instant buy it now pin that she can just touch. And through, mentioned before, Alibaba, or is it Amazon, it shows up at your house in 24 hours. Yeah. It's incredible. And you're talking about a user base that's continuing to grow. And we believe we're at the beginning of this cycle. So,
Thank you.
yeah, sorry. I could talk for a long time about this stuff. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Bueno, gracias a todos ustedes. Tratamos de que los desayunos nunca pasen de una hora para que pues, la gente venga, la gente vea que es algo que puede conocer cosas nuevas, que puede pensarlas. Ellos van a estar hasta mañana en la noche. Obviamente tienen varias citas, pero si quieren ponerse de acuerdo con Oscar. Y de todos modos ellos ya tienen varias personas de acá que quieren, ya llevan como 5. Los que quieran, bienvenidos, y los que no, pues gracias por asistir, gracias, y los estaremos invitando más seguido a más actividades. Muchísimas gracias.
Sí.